Welcome to an all-new episode of Get Lit with Lianna, the podcast. Join me as I sit down with a new guest author in each episode to discuss their books, careers, and everything in between. Today I'm joined by romance author Chloe Liese, who wrote the new book, Two Wrongs Make a Right. You may know her as the author of the beloved Bergman Brothers series, which has taken over Instagram, Bookstagram, Book Talk by storm. This is her first traditional published book with a new storyworld, so I'm very excited to get to chat with her about it today. We got into my favorite moments of the book, why it was important for her to create two neurodivergent characters, where she drew inspiration from for this story, and of course what she's working on next. So without further ado, my conversation with Chloe starts right now. Welcome, Chloe, to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. I just finished reading Two Wrongs Make a Right, and I really, really loved it. So I'm so excited to get to talk to you about this book. But we're recording this before the book is out. So before we start, I'd just love to know how you're feeling in the days, weeks leading up to its release.
First, thank you for having me, and I appreciate you reading the book and wanting to talk. It's been a roller coaster. I mean, I have experience publishing previously, I'm an indie author. So I've done this journey of writing the book, surrendering it to readers, letting it, the death of the author, it becomes the public. It is what it is. So in that sense, I've been familiar, but it's just with traditional, everything's slower and longer, and you're getting trade reviews and you're asking authors who you used to just read and fangirl over to read your book and say nice things about it. And
that's crazy.
Yeah, you're feeling the pressure of, you see how many print copies your publisher decided to run. And you're like, I hope I can ever sell that. There's, I think when you're indie, it's kind of just it's possibilities. It will be what it will be. If it's a success, great. If it's not, I'll just write another one. But with with traditional publishing, the weight of expectation for my Virgo type A self, it's a lot to carry. But mostly I've been trying through friends who've been through this, through therapy, through my own self-reflection, just to practice gratitude and remember that this is something I used to just dream about happening, and it's happening. And I just want to let myself hopefully have some moments where I soak that up and feel pride and gratitude and joy. I'm not great at it, but I'm trying.
It's amazing. That's a really, really great outlook to have on this process. But before we talk about the book, I can't even imagine making that kind of shift from self-pubbing to now going the traditional route. Can you tell me a little bit about maybe your background writing and why you decided to do it all alone, and then kind of how you got this publishing deal, that transition?
Sure. So it was interesting for me to look back and see another author who described it this way. Talia Hibbert, who obviously is so beloved and rightfully so for her Brown Sisters series. She had self-published a small town interconnected standalone series. And I remember reading, I think it was some big interview for her. I forget, maybe it was Book Page or something, but she was saying, she just didn't even try to get an agent at first. Like me, she's autistic, she's neurodivergent, and she's also Black, and she just has lots of chronic health issues and illness and mental health discussions, representation in her books. And she just said something along the lines of, I never even thought of trying to put this in the traditional market. I just knew I wanted to write these stories. And I do not align myself with her level of talent and craft and magic, because she is just truly a queen. But I identify with that feeling of, I just started indie publishing because I wanted to tell stories that featured people like me, like the people I love, who have chronic health conditions, who are neurodivergent, who deal with mental health struggles, who have past trauma, who are and I just wanted to see realness, reality.
Yeah.
I wanted to see real bodies and stretch marks and small bank accounts and messy families in romance, because I just kept feeling when I read romance, and this isn't a knock on it. I love the escapism and the pure, totally unrealistic perfection that you can find in lots of stories. That's fun and entertaining and great. But it wasn't just, I just didn't want to only read that. And I started feeling this kind of sad loneliness of like, why aren't there ever people dealing with stuff like me or the people I love, getting their happily ever afters, showing how they can have great intimacy and how even though it's hard sometimes to share these parts of your body and brain that struggle, you can be loved and desired and have like a great, fulfilling love story.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote the Bergman series. The Bergman Brothers, I call them, just because I love
Mm-hmm.
alliteration, but it does include the sisters too. And for anybody who's not familiar with these books, who's listening, like if you've been on the Bridgerton train, that's kind of that style of, it's a saga, a family saga, and each book, a different sibling and their love interest gets a story. And there's lots of, like I said, chronic health, pain, mental health, neurodivergent representation, because that's just important to me.
Mm-hmm.
So that series just kind of picked up some momentum. I had gotten inquiries about foreign translation rights, and
Okay.
I needed an agent for that. And I'd been working on, just for fun in pandemic, for some joy and escape, I'd been working on Two Wrongs Make a Right,
Okay.
this idea of a much ado retelling, because I'm a Shakespeare nerd, and I had this fun idea, so I was just playing with that. And I had a couple very kind friends who'd already been in traditional publishing who were like, you should just pitch what you have, tell these agents, that you have these interests in translations for your self-published stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
just get an agent through that. And yeah, I connected with Samantha Fabian at Root Literary, and she just loved this kernel of my story and just supported me as I finished it. And then we went on submission, and Christine Schwartz at Berkeley loved it for the reasons I loved this story. And we struck a deal, and here we
Yeah.
are.
So crazy. So what's it been like now, I guess, kind of going down this route, like relinquishing all of the control, I guess you kind of had when you were writing your other series and you were totally the only one involved. Like now you have a whole team behind you. So what's that been like?
Well, it definitely isn't as much relinquishing of control as I actually thought.
Okay.
Like, I still feel like my team, and maybe this is just very specific to like my editor and my marketing and publicity team, because I feel like they trust me a lot. Like they know, they've seen what I did on my own, and
Right.
I connected with my readers. And I feel like every step of the way, I feel incredibly lucky. They've just kind of done a really great job of looking what I've done and being like, okay, and how can we like elevate this? Like, how can we just pump this up a new level? How can we see what Chloe's done and the way she's connected with her readers and just support that and like elevate it to a new level? So I don't actually feel like I've lost a lot of control. I feel like my editor, from something as beginning as like the cover concept to just decisions in the developmental edits, she's always like, Christine's always just, this is your story. This is your voice. This is, this is the message you want to get out. And she's always doing this great job of just helping me understand the bigger picture, how it's going to land, what trends are. She's just so savvy. So I feel like I have an incredible support.
Amazing.
Yeah. But in terms of, there's a lot less that I have my hands in now than I did when I did it myself. But honestly, I was very burned out by the time I got that deal. I was like, I am ready to sit back and not do so much, because when you're indie, if you don't do it,
No one will.
no one will. And it takes quite a while to get to a place where you can really afford someone who's worth like that. You have to spend so much time training someone to be your PA and do things the way that you want. I'm not saying they're not worth it. They absolutely are. Like, it's such an important part of the indie world. PAs are incredible, but it is a lot of upfront investment of time, and it is money. And unless you're really having all of that to work with, you're just kind of stuck in this middle place of juggling all of the production aspects and marketing and publicity and creation. And it really drained me. So I feel like I wouldn't have been as keen to give up so much, maybe only 2 books into the Bergmans, but 5 books in, I was like, yeah, this is fine. You could do that. Go ahead. I don't care. That's great. It's great.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, the Bergmans was such a massive success. And I remember even when I first started my Bookstagram page and I was like looking for other similar books to the books I was reading, like that series was the most talked about. Like everyone is just still to this day obsessed with them, loves them, just raves about them, like suggests them. They're so beloved. What was it like now to kind of leave that story world and like do a standalone? Like, was that exciting for you? Was it stressy? Was it like, tell me about that decision and what you felt writing this story?
I was definitely a little scared because, as you say, like people have fallen in love with the world of the Bergmans. Like it's as much as they're excited to see what's going to happen for specifically the next sibling. It's just they want to see Vigo and his shenanigans.
Right.
And
they want like the callbacks and stuff.
Bickering, and they want to see Frankie being grumpy and Ren being cute. Like, and they want to get the little Bergman parent cameos. Like they love the world, which I am so immensely grateful for and touched by, because this fictional world I wrote is such an incredible place of safety and joy. It literally feels like they're my long distance family that I just like hop up a little fictional plane on and like fly to the A-frame or down to the house on in LA. And so they're so real to me. And I was apprehensive in a way, because it's like, what if people just love this world? And this book isn't part of that world. And it is a little bit more I'm not polished, but shaped to be self-aware as a romance novel. It's a retelling, retelling of a Shakespeare play of Much Ado About Nothing. It's a reimagining. I take some liberties to make a commentary, and that's what I wanted to do. But so it is a sort of more self-aware project rather than just sort of this like escape.
Right.
So I was nervous about that, but it isn't technically a full standalone. It's part of an interconnected trilogy for sisters.
Okay, that's what people were speculating. I've seen some people commenting, being like, I feel like there's more coming.
There is more coming. And in fact, the first chapter of the second book is in finished copies of Two Wrongs Make a Right. So people will get to know who the couple is and who the sister is. And I'm
so jealous that I only have like my digital e-arc. I need a finished copy immediately. I can't wait.
I'm very excited. A second book syndrome. I told myself, I was like, oh, I've written so many books. I'm not going to have second book syndrome, because it's just like after you've gotten through that first book, you doubt yourself. You've got the feedback from the first, and it still happened, but not in the way that, it was a bit different. It was just a labor of love, this book, but I'm finishing up working through the developmental edits from my editor. We had a great call, and it's going to go to copy edits really soon, like right after this first book publishes. And I feel that joy of feeling like, oh, I built a world. Like it's an ensemble cast. It's all the same people again. And there's a lot more of like an aspect of found family, because the core family isn't as big. Like the Wilmots, it's 3 sisters. And then Christopher, who's like a surrogate brother, next door neighbor.
Yeah.
It's not quite as big, but so that's why like the friend group is this rowdy, chaotic found family sibling shenanigans dynamic. And so it was fun to like know these characters more, revisit them, really punch up. There's a lot of group scenes, lots of game nights, and like there's a fantastic moment that I'm really excited for people to read. So it feels different. And I was scared definitely to leave the Bergmans behind and hope that people would like this world as much or in a different way and still appreciate it. But I do think people who enjoy that built world, that story building, world building, going to find that only gets more so through this Berkeley series. So I hope they stick through book 1 and hold on to the crumbs that are leading to more.
I'm sure they will. But speaking back, I guess, to the Bergman Brothers, like, do you think you're going to ever revisit that story? Like, do you have any plans to ever expand even more on that? Or you're kind of like, we're moving on from that?
The Bergmans? I mean, there's 2 books left. There's 2 more siblings are getting.
Okay. I didn't know that there were still more coming. That's so exciting. And those are still self-pub, or they're...
Yeah, they're still mine. So the next one's going to come out in the first half of 2023. Then my second Berkeley book will come out in fall of 2023. And then the last one will come out in the first half of 2024. So I'm going to be on a 1 Bergman, 1 Berkeley book.
Right. Oh my gosh. Busy.
Yeah, just a little bit. It's fine.
Okay. I would love to get in now to Two Wrongs Make a Right. So before we go any further, I know you kind of hinted where the inspiration of the story was, but can you just tell listeners a little brief synopsis about what this book is about?
Yeah. So the little tagline, which I love for this book, is opposites become allies to fool their matchmaking friends in the swoony reimagining of Shakespeare's Much Ado About Nothing. And I think it gives you a lot, so Bea and Jamie are opposites attract for sure. He is a starchy, buttoned up cat daddy cinnamon roll pediatrician hero.
I can't.
He is so prim and proper. Like he is that stick up his butt, went to boarding school Connecticut boy. And he is this just like, so I didn't actually set them in a specific location in the US because I wanted to keep this sense of we're suspending our real sense of what the world is. This is a Shakespeare reimagining world building. So I didn't, but I made basically where they are like a New York City analog. And so Bea is just this like New York girl, erotic artist covered in tats, very irreverent, very weird. And they're both neurodivergent and they meet through their friend and family group. And they have a meat disaster. Not surprisingly, as can be with two neurodivergent people when they meet, it's a little awkward and there's some clumsy stumbling of words and bodies. But so they don't get along right off the bat. And their friends just think they have great chemistry and potential. So their friends may or may not trick them into texting each other and leading up into a date being set up. And when they realize they've been set up, they're very upset about that. And so they decide they're going to get revenge and just fake date, just all go ham all the way in and just really get their friends and family invested in this idea of them and then break up and teach them a lesson about how like crappy it feels to be manipulated. So this is based off of, like you said, Shakespeare's Much Ado About Nothing. And in that play, Benedict and Beatrice they definitely clash. They're pretty quintessential enemies to lovers. They're both very much against love and very much against each other. But their friends just have this, and family have this theory that they're actually like they actually are hiding how they really feel for each other. In the play as well, the friends and family trick them into how it works in the play is overhearing. Like, did you hear how much Beatrice actually loves Benedict? And vice versa for her hearing about him.
Yeah.
How it works in the play is they don't find out until pretty much the end.
Right.
And they're just at that point, they've been kicking and screaming their way toward falling in love and they're finally in love. They're like, oh, it's fine. I mean, here we are. We landed there. But you always have to, when you're doing a retelling or reimagining, think about how does this and does it translate for a modern audience? Like, how can you graft these themes, these concepts to a modern audience? And there was the level and extension of like the length of manipulation for the people who supposedly love you. Great theater, great comedy, but terrible, like more modern contemporary storytelling. Like people would just be like, screw these guys. They're terrible. So I was like, well, let's move up the moment, the aha moment, and then think about what they would do and still explore those themes. So it was fun to introduce a new trope but to still play with these ideas of while Jamie and Bea, who are my Benedict and Beatrice, while they are pretending and still very much denying that they're good for each other or that they can be in love. The irony is, of course, that things become very real. Whereas in the play, all these lies lead to Benedict and Beatrice discovering a fundamental truth about their feelings.
Right.
And with those lies comes this sense of safety. With fake dating comes a sense of safety that they didn't otherwise have before. So I tried to really construct parallels of that and bring it to life. And I'm happy with how it turned out. It seems like in general readers are too. So that makes sense.
It's incredible. I can't imagine what the work was like in like outlining the story and kind of using that like basis of like a story and building on it. Like what was that out when this idea came to you? Like how did you even structure your outline? How did you kind of plan it out? Like what was that prep process like?
So I'm such a Shakespeare nerd. Like
I love that. I really love that.
Like some of my favorite movies are 10 Things I Hate About You, which is a taming of the Shrew retelling.
Yes.
And it is another favorite is Much Ado About Nothing, the film adaptation with Emma Thompson, Keanu Reeves, Denzel Washington, and Kenneth Branagh, of course. And I was just comfort rewatching it like right at the beginning of pandemic because, world burning, etc.
Yeah, as one does.
As one does when just absolute trauma is unfolding around you and you feel helpless. So I was just watching it and I was just so delighted by like the gajillionth time I'm watching this book. And I just was thinking, like, I really started thinking about how I could move the plot points to make it work for a rom-com. I was like, this is such good rom-com material, you know? And I haven't seen a modern rom-com take of Much Ado, which I'm kind of shocked by, honestly, in terms of film and TV industry.
Yeah.
But so I was like, okay, I've been thinking about how I needed to step out of the Bergmans a little bit and just stretch my brain. I was itching for a new path. I was thinking about trying to just break into trad and like get a break from being all the things for my career.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, this is the time to do it. I'm home all the time. Let's just think about it. So I honestly just kind of daydreamed a lot. I watched the movie one more time and took some notes. And then I just started writing, and I ran it by a couple author friends who were like, this is so new. Like, it's such a fun new premise, like fake dating for revenge. You don't hear about that very often. Like retellings aren't happening very much right now, though they're picking up, which is awesome. You know, Misha Sharma and Priscilla Oliveris, like, it's so great. And even like there's continue to be fabulous Austen retellings too. But yeah, anyway, so I was like, okay, I'm just going to go for it. So I had the general, I'm like a plotty pantser. So I get like beats figured out. I know my tropes. I know like the turning points. I know their growth arcs. Like I know their backstory. But in terms of like this happens at this place, that's something I just figure out as I'm picturing it as I go. So there was definitely a little try this. Now that doesn't quite work, try this. But yeah, I just had the general beats of the play. I had the shifts for how I felt like it would work better for the modern audience in place. And then once I knew I had my fake dating for revenge trope, it kind of was like, okay, now I know what I'm going to do here. And I just went for it. Revised a lot, but yeah, had a ton of fun drafting it. It was just pure play and joy.
No, it's such like a joyful book. Like I really loved it. I mean, the tropes were just everything. Like it was so much fun to read as a romance reader. And you could just tell like where you drew inspiration from and how you built the story. You could just like, as a reader, like you could just see that it's just like such a labor of love by you. And I really enjoyed reading it. Another part of the book that really struck a chord with me and really resonated with me, and I know it's something you're constantly doing, is having two neurodivergent main characters and having their story kind of exactly what you were saying at the beginning. Everybody deserves a love story. And however that may look, it's still valid, it's still worthy. Why did you decide to make both of these characters neurodivergent for this story? Like, what was the intention behind that?
I actually can't tell you how or when I decided that. It was like I just knew. And I think that comes from two things. One, Benedict and Beatrice are, as much as they are different, it's almost like they're so far in a circle around each other, they're almost touching. You know, he is a determined bachelor. She is a declared spinster. Neither of them want love. Like, and they have very different ways that they insult and roast and poke each other on the play. But at the end of the day, they are both just afraid of being seen, being vulnerable. I mean, just these really fundamental human things that all of us, that we all have about when we're like, oh my God, I'm falling in love. I feel so exposed and wonderful and terrifying, you know? And I think there's so much about Benedict and Beatrice, I would say more than any other in terms of Shakespeare's comedies, more than any other hero and heroine, they're equals. And, you know, and the ways that like the inequalities of their society do place them on different levels, they're talked about very openly. Like, so there's just a lot of self-awareness and portrayal of these two people as quite similar even in their differences.
Right.
And so I knew I knew this heroine was neurodivergent. And as I was thinking about who Jamie was and really enjoying going for a little bit less of like a common, like classic heroes, like someone who the starchy hero is fairly common, but like he has some real sensitivities and he has some vulnerabilities. I was just thinking about, you know, like the compulsions that he has, you know, the way anxiety manifests for him. It felt right. And so it's like, though they are different in their neurodivergence, they both have experience navigating the world, being misunderstood, masking those things, being punished or used for them. And I just thought this is going to be the linchpin for, along with their fake dating. You know, they could fake date and just bicker for 200 pages, or they could fake date. And in doing that, you have to be passable enough and believable that you have to share things about yourself. And that neurodivergent conversation for most of us by the time we're in our, into our adulthood, it happens pretty early because you just don't have time to be with people who are going to be ableist or nasty or not try to understand you. So you just put it out there. You say, hey, this is who I am. These are the things I need. I might do this or that. All right. Can you da da da? And so I thought, wow, if they're both seeing this about each other, then it's going to give them a really beautiful foundation for care and trust and respect. And I wanted it also to be a very safe and affirming experience for neurodivergent folks who read the story.
Right.
And also just for anybody who has that thing that I think any of us who's self-aware has, the thing that you don't think someone can love you for or see or care about or make room for and still desire you and want to be with you. So I just wanted it to be very, very affirming from that standpoint, and having them both, rather than one be neurotypical, one be neurodivergent, having them both be, I thought, was the best place to really lean into that feeling and affirmation.
I just also love like the mutual love and respect that they have for one another. And it just like bleeds off the page. Like it's such a lovely thing to read. But I feel like everybody will be taking away like so many different parts of this book. But like Jamie, I feel, is just like one of the most ultimate book boyfriends. Like, have you been hearing this from advanced readers? Like, what are people just like foaming at the mouth for him? Like, I need to know. Like, it's just out of control. He's so like supportive and perfect and understanding and patient and like everything that any human should be, at all times. Like, what are people saying to you? Are people just freaking?
I've definitely heard that he is ultimate book boyfriend material for some folks, like, because he does have that. He's a bit of that gentleman in the streets, freak.
Yeah, stern brunch daddy a bit.
Yeah, stern brunch daddy energy. So it's like by the time the slow burn hits, you're like, I remember actually working on edits when I sent it back to Christine. She was like, "Okay, Jamie, all right, like here we go." I was just like, I need to lean into this because like man has layers. But I really love the idea. I do let him be persnickety with her. He isn't like, for people who've read my Bergmans, like my sunshiny cinnamon roll hero, second book, Ren, is just the sweetest little golden retriever, sweet. Jamie has some edges, and he has, he's in his 30s. He's a pediatrician. He's got a life. He's got a routine. He's got a way of doing things. And Bia is just blowing that up. And he's delighted and exasperated and really attracted to her. So I love kind of seeing him have this very controlled, smooth, starchy front, but also just sort of being like disintegrating.
Yeah.
Jamie's that gif of the coffee, of the dog with the coffee mug and the flames around. Like, it's fine. This is totally fine. This is just like seeing more and more things he likes about Bia, and his life's becoming more and more chaotic.
Yeah.
So he's fun. I think he's human enough because he's he's quite destabilized by entering into this fomance with Bia. But yeah, he is a person of integrity, and he's a man of his word, and he is a very giving lover, and he's very much trying to see and understand Bia because he knows what it's like to not be, and so I think he has and he talks about why he's a pediatrician is because kids they're so easy to relate to. They're so honest. They're so true, and I think there's like a pureness to his heart that, it shines through. So people seem to really, really enjoy him. I do know he's a bit off the beaten path as a hero, but I love that about him. And
I love it too. No, I love it too. Looking back at the whole writing process, like what was one of the most fun and I guess also like the most challenging scenes for you to write?
Well, I won't give away too much, but their first fake date with the friend group at the bowling alley, I literally laughed my butt off that whole scene. Like, because it's for I don't want to spoil it, but for readers who haven't read it, obviously when this drops, it's the biggest physical comedy scene in the book. Like, it's just pure chaos from start to finish, but it's also really horny, and it's like it's their first kiss and the first like, oh, as I call it, the oh moment, like, oh, I think I actually kind of like you a little bit, it's that first like rumbles to sort of destabilizing the fake dating. We're not going to fall in love. So that was not challenging, but that was just like a blast. And in terms of, I think maybe if I would talk about challenging in terms of like a craft standpoint, the last quarter of a book is always tough for me because I don't always write like a third act breakup conflict. and I actually was waffling back and forth. And I try not to pay attention to reviews too much, but I've had some come across people like, I can't believe she did a third act breakup. And I was debating it, but I ultimately decided it needed to happen because things go really well, honestly, for Jamie and Bia. Like the whole time they're fake dating.
Yeah.
They find compatibility. They have great intimacy. They have fun together. It's them against everybody else. Like, and it could have just been that for another 250 pages, but I was like, that's the sort of good and working reality of their relationship. They've stumbled upon it, but they haven't had to like fight for it. And so I revised a good number of times, and I stand by my third act breakup in this book. It was important and necessary. And as from a craft standpoint, I think it made it the strongest version in terms of how it bears out its themes and how these two people earn their happily ever after, because they both have to navigate how choosing to build a relationship, which they meant to be a lie within people who lied to them, it collapses a little bit. And now they have to say, how are we going to say, this is us, this is ours within this larger dynamic, make it work in the mess of life. And so that was definitely challenging for me. But I love how I write their reunion. I love it because it feels like picking up a thread and then just putting it right back through the needle and stitching it back in. They're not terrible to each other. They're just hurting and not able to figure out how to do this now in this moment. So they have to pause, they have to take a break, and then they can pick up this thread that is supported and made possible because of what other people in their friend group are doing. And that's going to be cool to see how that bears out, I hope, for readers of the book. So that was challenging, but I'm really proud of how I worked it out. And I love that you see them really leaning in and choosing each other and just having this very victorious, like triumphant, swoony last couple chapters together.
Yes. I love how it ended. I feel like it was perfect for their story, and it just completed the arc in a way like I can't imagine any other real ending. So I stand by your decision.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. But now I'm so curious and so excited to read what's coming next in the story world. Like I'm just dying. I need to get my hands on a finished copy so I can see that extra chapter.
I can tease because people are going to, be reading it. In that first chapter of the second book, it picks up right where you left off. Like Friendsgiving happens, we're there. So it's like a really seamless.
It just really goes. Oh my gosh.
And so I think it gives you a really nice sense of continuity from the story world, while definitely making sure I've had, readers giving me critique who hadn't read Two Wrongs Make a Right. And so they were able to make sure and tell me like, okay, this is holding on its own. It's not assuming anything of me. And it worked really well. So I think people who've read Two Wrongs will really enjoy getting to like, oh, I get to see more of Jamie B. And I see this, everything just picking up and growing. Because that's how I see interconnected standalones is every book, there is more meat to it because there's more history. Right. And it's like, I don't know, it's making like I don't know, you ever make those like muffins or bread where you're like, I'm just going to throw in some chocolate chips, and then I'm going to throw in some nuts, and then I'm going to throw in some fried fruit, and then some like this, you just keep folding.
Keep adding it in. Yeah.
And I feel like with this next book, it's just folding in and building off of what you fell in love with, hopefully with the first one, and just getting to see the happy endings continue and enrich, and these people as a group grow, not just because that's really important to me too, is to not just focus on two people falling in love, right? Family love, showing friend love, showing, all the platonic love, all these different ways that that relationships are complicated and valid and beautiful, and we need them. So I really, really love to lean into these secondary characters and build them up and make them rich, because we need them, and they're just as important, if not the primary relationships for a number of people for whom romance or love is not happening, or, physical intimacy like sexual relationships are not happening for them. So it's just so important for me to build those whole worlds up and enrich and validate all of those dynamics.
No, incredible. Yeah, no, that's so incredible. I'm so excited for everyone to get to read this book, for them to fall in love with Bia and Jamie. Like, it's just, it's amazing. I'm so excited for you. And I'm excited for these next books because give me more,
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you talk about it. And this was great.